Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Conversation Capital. So get unready with me. So I think it should be the previous get ready with me from this one. We went through reflections and we didn't get to a place where we could go through comments, and then I tried to convince the team to say, guys, let's do comments in another session. So this is what we're going to do now. So no reflections. We're just going through comments with this one while I get unready. It's the end of shoot day. And it's been a great shoot day, guys.
It has.
Yeah.
And that break was good.
Yeah, absolutely. We've eaten.
The episodes are going to be fire.
Absolutely.
Fire.
Absolutely. We've had a break. We've eaten. Some people have had a few drinks. So if you hear, you must know.
Kevin, did you see me trying not to scream there?
Yes.
Okay. Let's start with some of the first comments.
Okay. There's comments. I'm starting with the first one. On platonic relationships between men and women. To buy drums, one says, not all men are chasing every woman we see. Some of us are very selective, and that requires more time. You posted that.
I did post that in the group. No, for me, it was just a beautiful reminder. I mean, I know Given is making a point when he says men are like hunters. Yeah, it's bumsam. But I just like that because there's something about de-animalizing men that I'm a fan of. In the sense that I feel like men are given these very animalistic characteristics, especially when it comes to their sexual behaviors.
Yeah.
Like as if he's a lion. And I think it perpetuates rape culture. If I think about what were you wearing, did you tempt him? As if he's some brakinyana that doesn't have any control of his, So I liked that comment, and I like to highlight things like that.
I also do think, Guti, though, that clip, I don't know, was it from the clip or the full episode?
A clip, I think.
Clip.
Yeah, I do think, Guti, there might have been a misunderstanding, because I did see quite a few of comments that shared the same sentiment. And I say that to say, Guti, I think people are saying that, think that I'm saying whenever you see a girl, you want to go after her. Yeah. Whereas, I mean, even though I said that Sipi's Spamsami part jokingly in jest, but at the same time, the point I'm making is that our thought patterns are different whenever we interact with women, as opposed to when women are interacting with men. Basically, it's like someone who's been in marketing or an academic. An academic doesn't approach conversations in the same way as, like a lay person does. Yeah, I think that should be politically correct. Like a lay person does,
I hear you. No, I do hear you. Obviously, a short can always be misconstrued. So I fully heard it, but I just wanted to highlight that. I really liked that comment. And I always want to highlight, because I think there's a narrative that can even be fed to young boys around very animalistic, and it sort of affirms certain bad behaviors. As if they can't control themselves. And I don't like it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Another thing I do think is that it really does help to normalize men having restraint. Yes, absolutely.
What about city pofolo? They are humans, not animals.
I know this is very far removed from what you're talking about. But I learned the word braki very late in my life.
Oh.
I just heard you say it now.
Yeah, braki's a puppy.
Yes. It's like someone who and people use it to like almost, not tease, but insult people. Like,
Yes.
O braki ya mamang.
Yes,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And also usually refers to lack of self-control, because, a puppy, you have to remove it. Otherwise, it will just keep eating and eating. It doesn't know when to stop. So it's like a lack of self-control that you eat until you have no
I see.
limits. Yeah. So that's what, in that context.
Yeah. In other contexts, it's used as
Steel boy,
Yes,
ice boy. Yes. Yeah, like a little puppy.
Yeah, someone you can tell to do whatever they want.
Yeah.
You want them to. Okay, and then another comment has to do with living in South Africa while being of Ghanaian descent with Aspo. Low down dirty thing says,
What a name.
Hey,
Once the name start fire, we know.
Low Down Dirty Thing says, during the 1980s, the Ghanaians, what is EC?
Eastern Cape.
Okay, Eastern Cape Ghanaians were actively recruited by a regional tribal leader to teach maths and science. From 1982 to 1985, I had 3 different Ghanaian teachers, and every second high school in my region had one. Some of those came with their wives, who became popular for their hair treatment routine and started opening hair salons. From there came a generation of their kids who grew up as locals, and I know one such lady who used to act in a local soapy.
No, definitely. I liked this comment because I don't know if you're familiar, but Ugandans and Ghanaians from EC are so common. It's a bit weird. Of these like purely Ugandan descendant people who their parents are both Ugandans, but they were raised in Eastern Cape. And so that comment was like, oh, is that where that comes from? That's all I wanted to highlight with that comment. To say many of us have asked ourselves that Eastern Cape has these pockets of like, and it's not like Zimbabwe, just here. We can see that why Zimbabwe would just enter, or Mozambique, or, you know.
Yes.
But when you find, it's for some reason, it's Ghanaians and Ugandans that I've picked up have these like EC roots that are so odd and misplaced.
Yeah.
That when I read that, I said, oh, that's where that comes from. And it's either they're lecturers or teachers. And so seeing the background behind that was just something I wanted to share.
I see, yeah.
And then, in a Get Ready With Me episode, it was talking about ageism in the workplace, and that episode where we spoke about whether we call people bomama, bopapa, you know, and what that does in the workplace. So Kaluiva says, a guy same age as my dad, I used to call him Bab Ndebele at work until he demanded that I dished up for him at a work function. I started calling him James that day.
I loved this comment because it literally sits at the heart of what we were talking about.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's that thing where you will think that you have a. I mean, it's not everyone, right? Because a lot of people are also commenting that Mina, they called me Mama, but I never took. And I hope that the self-awareness is at a level where you can actually see that you really, really are looking at, did I ever use my seniority, and not corporate seniority, but the fact that age, exactly. Did I ever use it to my advantage? And can what I'm saying about myself, is it being said of me? You know?
And
True, you may think
exactly,
a particular thing of yourself, but people may not think that about you.
Exactly.
Or they may not experience you that way. Speaking about experiencing people, isn't it? And given we talk about this a lot in relation to how we women experience men, in that the same person can be experienced differently by different people. A story that you have about Ursula, I may not have about Ursula. So when we experience how maybe you experience here, I'm doing it in relation to how she experiences herself. So she may think, no, I'm doing the best. Like, I know I don't behave, or I don't treat myself as if I'm the older one. I listen to them, etc. But they may not think that about how they experience you.
Sure. You're speaking very much to a concept of self-awareness, which is, self-awareness is a bigger gift than we know that it is, or that we acknowledge that it is, because this is why relationships and the interactions we have with other humans, we say that they hold up mirrors to ourselves, because you get to know yourself faster than when you're by yourself. When you're by yourself and you're engaging with other people, there's a huge difference in the way that you see yourself, because somebody else goes, you're so selfish. And you're like, you say what now? And then you have to take stock, you know, not to internalize every negative thing somebody says.
I like that you said that. I was about to say, when does it stop?
Yeah, not to internalize every negative thing somebody says, but if it's like somebody that loves you and somebody that you're trying to build with, and they're saying something, it allows you to take stock, because you getting to the concept that you're selfish, you'll never arrive there, because according to you, you're very giving to yourself, obviously, because you're giving to yourself. You know what I mean? And so you learn yourself so much better. That's why self-awareness it's such a celebrated thing because not many people have it. And beyond not having it, it's actually a very difficult thing to obtain. It's very difficult. Your eyes look outside, they never look at you.
Exactly.
You
Exactly.
know? And
yeah.
so your experience of yourself, you actually don't have an experience of yourself. You have to be very objective to try to put yourself in the shoes of somebody experiencing you.
I hear you.
Yeah.
No, I completely hear you. Like, self-awareness is such a complicated one, hey? But I do hope that it becomes common practice for people, particularly friends, like people within your friend group, for us to ask each other the question, like, friend, am I selfish? Genuinely, like, I'm not going to be mad at you. I want to literally, about something, Mina, my friends, I had to work on, because for years, my friends constantly, and not just one person. And the thing is, at some point, you have to view your friends in the light of, they can't all have the same agenda. Like, you know, I can't accuse them of being against me, right? Like, my friends used to tell me that given you're too loud when we're having conversations and you just never are willing to lose an argument, like, it doesn't matter how I can spin it. I heard it so many times that it had to become something I work on, right? I remember even having a conversation with a friend of mine who was telling me, it was actually Emma. We were talking about Emma Mabe that we featured on one. Yeah. Like, we were having a conversation, and there was something that she didn't want to tell me. We've been friends for a very long time, since like 2010. But now we were having a conversation later, and she said to me, you know what, I never thought I could have this conversation with you because I thought I'd face a lot of resistance. But the way that I responded to her on that day, she was surprised. Like, okay, I didn't expect this. Like, I expected it to go like, no, Emma, whatever, you know, for me to be a bit more aggressive and argumentative.
The danger with, not the danger per se, but what I hope we balance with the whole being self-aware thing is not being accepting, like you did, given you heard something about, okay, it wasn't self-awareness per se, but people told you feedback, right?
Yes.
But there are people who use self-awareness as a weapon to be a particular way. Like, who are like, I'm like this. It's either you take me, and that's it.
Aish.
You know, we do that a lot in this generation. It's like, I know my attachment style.
Yeah.
And I'm this way. And if I don't meet a man...
To the point where somebody can even tell you why they're like that.
Yes.
And it's like, well...
What are you doing about it?
Yeah. Well, I've told you how I'm broken and why I'm broken, and let's move on.
Yes.
Versus correcting.
Trying to work on
Yes,
stuff.
absolutely.
Yeah. So we need to strike a balance there. We can't always get away with saying, no, I need to be reaffirmed every 5 minutes that you love me. That's not normal. That cannot be normalized.
That example.
Hey.
Who you talking to, girl? I know it ain't me. Because I don't need that.
I'm giving a very silent
You know when the pastor has someone in mind when they're sharing a message, that's bonga right now.
That's what Bonga just did.
Yep.
Cheat.
This is the danger of recording late after drinks, guys. It's just being a comedian.
Yeah.
And then on the topic where we were talking about parenting, being a stay-at-home parent, or the benefits of that, I think it was a short, Prof. the Poet says, being a stay-at-home parent is a blessing, he asks. Maybe for you ladies, but definitely not for most men. We are just not wired to stay at home. Also, it may be a blessing if it is by choice. But most men find themselves being stay-at-home parents not by choice, but because they can't find employment. But the sad thing is that they are being ridiculed and ill-treated by their female spouse or partners, viewed as inferior, as it were. The reason most women still promote the narrative that the man must provide. So we are neither the same nor equal when it comes to finances. The narrative remains in force that the man's income is the family money, the woman's income is hers. When most men start generating a lot of income, they think of how they will care for their families. Yet women Yet when a woman gets money, she thinks she doesn't need a man anymore. Not every woman thinks like that, but unfortunately, that's how most women think and do things out there. You know, I posted this because yes, there is some truth in it. We live in a society that says "Indoda must," ne? But then a thought came to my mind to say, when the guy said the man's income is the family money, the woman's income is hers. For some reason, the first thing that came to my mind is that, then why do we have so many men who run away from maintenance and paying maintenance to their kids? There are men out there who would go to extreme lengths of leaving their full-time jobs in order to run away from maintenance. So I don't know where, that's just the first thing that came to my mind to say, if men and their money is around the family, or is it because you're no longer with the mother of the kid, then you don't consider the child your family anymore? But for me, it's like, I don't know. Is it always about securing the family, a man's money? If that's some of the realities that other women face or children face, where men know they have kids out there that they are not taking care of.
This is a good example you're giving, and tricky.
It's tricky.
It's
layered.
tricky in the sense that the example you're giving also reinforces what the man is saying. In that, as society, to be a man who is upstanding and of noble status, that you're a good man, you're a virtuous man, you should be willing to give up your full income for this family, to sustain the family. And so that's why it's looked down upon for a man not to be paying maintenance and not to be taking care of his offspring, in a way that women don't face that same pressure. As in, a woman's income is never sought to or looked at as something that is supposed to sustain a family. It's almost like an elective salary into a household. Right? So you're re-emphasizing what this man is saying.
I don't agree. Because I would agree with you if these men that were chased for maintenance were saying, I don't have the money, but I want to be present.
I hear you.
These men don't want to even be present.
Yes.
In that sense.
Okay, think about it like this. I hear everything that you're saying. I'm saying there's a duality to it.
Yes.
I'm saying if a woman ditches her child with a man, the argument has never been
about the money.
It's
about
always
what
been
kind
about
of a
her
woman are you
needs, yes.
to leave your child.
The presence of, and so fundamentally the argument is never be present in your child's life. It's pay maintenance and move on. So that reinforces the value of a man in society is money.
It's money.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes. It does reinforce.
Because nobody's going to maintenance court for you to hang out with your kid.
Yes.
Judge, I'm just asking him to come see the child
Yeah.
and visit the child and instill manly principles. It's leave the money and go.
But also, there's also this side where some mothers, I won't say a lot of mothers because that's a risky statement to make. Some mothers say, if he was spending the time with his child, then maybe I wouldn't be having to chase him for the money because I'd know, Shem, you do want to be there. You just don't have the presence. And if you think about how women are forgiving to the absence of men, they'll make excuses until reach at the point of maintenance. They've done a lot in order to get that type of intervention, to be like, hey, your child. They've done a lot. It's mostly situations that put them. Otherwise, there's also a lot of women who are like, I don't need his money actually. Like, I'm not willing to go through the admin of maintenance court. I'm not willing to do all of those things. You know, so men themselves have a duty to say, okay, I can't give money, but I can give presence.
And I also think the thing about presence is that if somebody is present, this is a difficult chat. I don't have children, but I imagine that if somebody is present, then they see what the child needs. Then it's not a matter of me asking.
Absolutely.
There are certain things that you are present for that you see are missing in the child's life, and that allows you to show up for them. But that is not the argument of many women. It's leave money and go.
You know, I do think, Uguti, at times with conversations like this, and I'm saying this not necessarily just us, but us as a society, especially those of us who are more living in affluence or middle class or whatever the case may be. I mean, I want to also not just have everyone thinking, oh, if I earn this much. I mean, also in terms of psychographics, like psychologically, you are you think in a certain way, right? Yeah. So what I'm basically getting at is we need to remember to place ourselves in the shoes of those who, the majority of people within the country who find themselves in these circumstances, under these circumstances, right? And the reason I say that is this, right? There's a culture, it's kind of like debt, right? I don't know if you've realized just how, for our parents, they'd literally, it's almost like a song that they sing to each other. We live for debt. And I'm absolutely sure that all of us in this room have heard some older person say that to another. Like, we live, you guys have never heard that? We live for debt.
No.
Spileli kwelete. You guys have never heard that?
But I know I'm very scared of debt because of seeing my mother go every month end to go pay accounts.
Yes, you understand.
So
my point basically being, Guti, in the townships, that became a song. Like, everybody expects you to be in debt. Like, our generation, in our workplaces, when we talk about, like, you know, I was saying to Guti, I mean, if you have 20,000 rand, to a lot of people, you don't have debt. Like, you don't come to our debt group, our debt counsel group. Like, you really do not have debt, right? So the reason I mention that is because I do think there is having children, a lot of men fall into this thing of having children becomes a rite of passage. Like, when you reach a certain age, when you come back from the mountains, you just need to bring one or two into this world. And it has nothing to do with some of the things we're talking about. Like, as much as those things are present and they do exist, right? But it has very little to do, in many situations, actually, I just wanted to bring a child, you know, because I know Utamachita were telling me, Guti, no, it's time for me to bring a child into the world, you know. So and obviously I'm adding that onto.
So you're saying the reasons could be as surface, for the lack of a better word.
Yes, as that.
I just
like
want to bring an offspring.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not the mom is evil. It's that's why I'm not paying maintenance. No, I just wanted to bring a child because it's a rite of passage where I come from. But the idea, the concept of a rite of passage is not what they're thinking of. Amachita, have kids. Everybody has kids, and I don't have a job, I don't have anything, but I know that this has to be exactly. Exactly.
And then I didn't get the name of this episode, but I'm sure we'll get it as I'm reading. And this person says, people do not plan for retirement, so when they reach, I'm sure it has to do with ageism in the workplace and what we spoke about. Do you call someone mama, papa in the workplace? The person says, people do not plan for retirement, so when they reach retirement age and realize that they do not have any plans, then they find it hard to retire, so they work for the sake of having something that gives them meaning. But if as a person you develop activities, hobbies, and build communities that are part of who you are outside of work, then when retirement age hits, you know that there is more to your life than your 9 to 5 that defined a great part of it. And also financially, they even realize that the money that comes with retirement is not as much as they thought it would be. And with unemployment in SA also means that the parents are working while their children are unemployed. So parents, even in their old age, continue to be breadwinners. But yeah, planning for a retirement will be a good topic to cover on the show. You know, the part that I liked was, and with unemployment in SA also means that the parents are working while their children are unemployed. So parents, even in their old age, continue to be breadwinners. This is such a reality. Old people are leaving their kids in the house to go to work because the youth is not being employed. There's just no jobs for young people. So they're realizing, I'm going to have to stay in work for longer than I thought I would because my child doesn't have I don't have anyone to maybe be independent in the house. I'm the only breadwinner.
But what's also scary is I definitely think the culture around Black people, their retirement plan is their children. Do you get what I'm saying? I feel like that isn't the case with white people.
Yeah.
White people's retirement plan is to take care of themselves. Apologies given. To take care of themselves all the way till retirement, or all the way till death. Whereas that isn't Black culture. Black culture, your child being independent is the plan.
Yes.
Because there needs to be an era where they take over them. And not to look at one as better than the other.
Yeah.
Because Indian people are managing to do it well. Indian offspring look after their parents.
Yes.
You know, and it's not called Indian tax. I haven't heard it. Maybe they also call it that. But I haven't heard it called it being Indian tax.
I do wonder though.
Which is, so I don't want to necessarily look down on the concept. Because for me, white descendants in comparison to us are usually more lonely because they check into a retirement or old age home or an old age home or retirement center and whatever, and they don't get visited by their children.
Yes.
Whereas in Black communities, you need to go take groceries to mom.
Yeah.
You need to make sure mom is being seen to, and is that necessarily a bad thing? I don't think so. But the culture is different in the sense that Black people's retirement plan is their children. You know, I mean, I won't lie, it's a huge waiting factor for me. My child will be listening to this one day when they're 40 and I'm, I don't know, well into my 70s.
Balling in a retirement home.
Yeah.
They see me rolling.
But like, it's a big factor for me when I think of it. I'm like, who's going to look after me when I'm an old kid? And I don't think that already shows that my retirement plan will be my child. And that's how we see.
But for you, aren't you
community.
thinking more in terms of company rather than financially?
I'm thinking everything.
Even financially?
You know, for me, my parents have always said, I made you independent so that you can take care of yourself. Like, I've always been so like liberated by that. They do not expect a thing. Whatever you do for them is like an extra, like, oh, great. But yeah, you're right. For a lot of people, my neighbor was saying to me, once you're bonga, you guys are so lucky. Like, when you get your job, you didn't have to think about a fridge.
No,
buying
absolutely.
the house a fridge or couches.
Or building your
or
parents
building
a
a
home.
house.
Me too. I also see it as a privilege. Like, all the time. The things I've done for my parents, guys, are cute. Or taking them on trips. But I haven't done like fundamental. My parents had the fundamentals, you know what I mean? That they did for themselves. And so Black tax, to be honest, to me, it's a myth. You know, because I've done cute things, but not the fundamental taking care of this person as another child or another dependent.
Yeah.
And that is not the reality. And I can acknowledge that. But I definitely know, because the other day you were talking about buying something, to show that it's in our culture to think like that. Because even with me, it's in our culture to think, I need to pay back to this person. I need to give back to this person. Whereas I don't know, maybe, you know, white people can comment as well and let us know. But I don't see that being in their culture to necessarily have that need and desire. I remember Trevor Noah talks about it in his book. And I really can't believe that every Black person, when you got to that point in Trevor Noah's book, you related to it. Because Trevor Noah speaks of that experience where I think the mom's name is Nombuyiselo or something like that, but to bring back. And she gave him the name Trevor because she didn't want a name that had weight on it, because she felt like she always needed to give back to her family. And so she liberated Trevor of that responsibility to, you know, to give back and to. And I remember when Trevor took the whole Daily Show team to his grandmother's home in Soweto.
Yes.
And we were like, Trevor, you haven't built your grandmother mansion, what. In my heart, I was like, these are people that hadn't read the book. Because this is specifically the curse the mom wanted to break. You know, not to burden the next generation with give back.
And doesn't he speak about the fact that I've tried to want to make certain changes, and she's like, no.
Yeah, I'm fine.
If people act like they don't know how stubborn grandmothers and mothers become the older they get.
Anyone who's had the home divider fight with their parents will know these people don't want anything with some of their things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on the episode, GBV, with the South African Research Council Deputy Director, I think. I'm so sorry if this is incorrect. But we spoke about gender-based violence in South Africa. And then someone says, I want to give a different perspective. My name is Tabang, a follower and man from Botswana. My country is often counted amongst the most peaceful countries in the world, let alone Africa. I personally have walked the streets at night from every corner of our capital city, even in the dead of the night. Of course, whilst one still needs to be cautious, there are rogue elements in every society. But I was bringing this up because compared to South Africa, which I often frequent, the fear of violence is at a minimum. However, Botswana ranks as one of the most violent countries for women in the home. Our GBV cases are atrocious, from sexual assault to straight up murder. We are neck and neck in SA if we have not surpassed it. The dichotomy of being a so-called peaceful nation but having GBV cases which are bordering on a state of emergency is something I struggle to wrap my head around. More people here are more likely to be killed in their homes by people they know than in the streets.
Sure.
I just want to share this perspective because many South Africans think a lot of bad things are happening in their country, whereas even your goody two cousins like us are just as bad, if not worse. I would like scholars to really look into the Botswana case because I would understand if violence was pervasive across all spheres of our lives. But there is something about GBV that just baffles me.
Sure, that's very interesting. I didn't read that comment. It's the first time I'm hearing it. And also, I didn't know that about Botswana. I didn't know that they've got a GBV sort of.
Yeah, neither did I.
Yeah, and it makes me think, because I don't know. I could be wrong. I often think that there's a thing about entitlement with GBV. In fact, I'm not wrong. You must feel entitled to someone to beat them for something, or to beat them into a certain behavior or outcome that you want. You must feel an ownership over that person, you know? And if you don't get it, then, because think of something that you pull and tug and it's yours. You know, it's like if I borrowed you my pair of shoes, you know, you're not as comfortable with it as you would be unless if you paid for them. Once you pay for something and you feel ownership over it, you run them into the mud, you hike with them, you do whatever you want, you wash them a million times, you scrub them down, they're yours. And I feel that way with GBV. I feel like there must be a certain level of entitlement and ownership. And so when I hear that, it makes me think of now the Tswana culture and maybe the men in that culture feeling entitled to women. And I don't know, this is just a thought around, but I always feel at the center of beating someone is that you feel entitled to their obedience. You feel entitled to their decisions. You know, you feel like you're deserving of their submission to you.
I completely understand why, when you were saying it earlier, the statement of you feel entitled, that I don't know, but at the same time you want to say, but like it has to be, you know, because Nami, and Bonga and I were talking about this earlier with regards to just like rape and predatory behaviors. Like, I struggle to understand like why and how. I don't know if you get what I mean. Like, I struggle to understand where does that come from. Like that feeling of I need to be, you know, I once sat at a dinner table with someone and we were having this conversation, you know, when someone kind of sort of like exposes themselves as being someone of that thought. Like that's literally what they think. So they're saying, but given what if husbands are beating their wives because they're unable to compete with them verbally. So the wives are attacking them verbally, but you have nothing else to respond with but like physically. And that just didn't make sense to me. Then why don't you leave her? You have so many other options apart from having to physically overpower them if you are unable to match their energy in terms of the argument itself, you know. Like I don't know if maybe if you get what I'm saying, but I just cannot relate which is why even when someone says to me, it's because of the power, I can't relate to it so much that I'm like, could it really be that?
Given, Nami, when I explain like why abuse happens and why rape happens and all of that, I say it because academics have said it and explained it. Ne?
I hear you.
But I'm like you.
Yes.
Like for example, I say to you, if you're really that obsessed about overpowering someone, why is foreplay someone maybe go get a sex worker and say I require the services of someone, and this may seem careless, but it's because we're also trying to navigate certain things, right? It may seem careless to say, why is this? Don't you go to a sex worker and say, I want you to behave like, you don't want this? I don't know. That sounds sick in itself.
I hear you.
But you're absolutely right. What about power?
Yes.
What
it's
about
like,
power
guys,
on a 7-year-old?
A whole R. Kelly. How many women would have just thrown themselves at him? That he wanted the power so much. Like, it just doesn't make sense. This person is wanted all over the world.
I personally have always reasoned things like rape, especially, to spirituality, demon, the Satan. I could be wrong. But for me, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Once you start raping
it's the thing we're saying, right? We can't
old.
understand it to such a point that you just try to...
You have to reason it in a different way. Or surely there must be a demon involved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Surely this is satanism. 6 months. 1 hour, 6 months. Hashtag justice for Kwekwe. I don't know where that case will be when this airs. But a 7-year-old child.
Imagine.
What do you see? What power? What power?
There is no power there.
There is no power.
But
so,
I guess it's to assert this dominance over this weak thing. And when you speak about the spirituality, the academics will definitely say you're absolving the perpetrator of their own autonomy to make the decision to rape, right? But that's the truth. That's what we're grappling with.
Yeah.
We're trying to, or is it something that we can never understand? Perhaps that's it.
I wonder,
because we obviously will never be in those shoes.
Yes, maybe
Bonga,
we'll
you're
never.
actually saying something very interesting. I think about perhaps what if we're looking at a psychiatric case that has not been diagnosed yet? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I hear you.
Think about the first crazy person. Crazy is not the right word. Sorry.
We know what you mean.
Yeah. The first person to talk to like voices and that.
Yes.
Surely it didn't exist at the time, so there were concepts, there were theories people were grappling with. And what if a generation from now they'll be like looking at rapists and saying this is, you've got rapophilia or whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
diagnosing it, and it actually could be an illness, a chemical imbalance, if we really want to go full on science and leave the spirituality out of it. I just had that thought now to say, what if we're just scratching the surface of what's really going on in the minds of these people, because it boggles all of us.
There was a case.
Those of us that consider ourselves normal.
There's a man.
Yes, I hear you.
There's a man. He just got 2 life sentences. And he's in Gauteng. He raped a 6-week-old baby.
How?
His own child. Oh, the baby couldn't stop crying. He blames the mother for leaving him with the baby. You guys, I'll send you the link and then you add it. Perhaps. A very less than 2 months, goodness. A baby.
Imagine.
And raped and went on to kill that baby. So things like that, it's like, what's happening? And for me, in cases like that, it's like, that cannot be your first victim. That cannot be your first victim. When I think about them, it's like, it's not the first time you've done something like this.
You can't be so desensitized that's the first thing you do.
This may be the first time we found out because this baby ended up dying. But it can't be the first time you've done this.
I'm very keen to hear people's thoughts on this one. If you guys could drop a comment right here around.
What is this thing?
What is it? Do you guys think it's psychological? Do you guys think by deserve or by in a psych ward? Do you think that they need, what is it when you exercise a demon?
Exorcism.
Yeah, exorcism. Kiki spirituality. And I know we're going to get different angles.
Yeah.
And I want to hear it. I want to
preface this by saying, we understand the seriousness of this crime and just how but what, like, we're not negating the seriousness of this,
absolutely.
and we're not justifying these things, but I think whilst we're grappling with it like everyone else, so it's not to say we're negating the seriousness of this matter,
because I hear you in the sense that you'll find that sending somebody to prison could be a temporary solution, is not the word, but not the correct solution. That perhaps maybe discussions like this is where we start trying to dig and find real solutions to the problem, the root of the issue. Because you send somebody to prison, and in my opinion, people that go into South African prisons come out worse criminals than when they came in. They come out with way more trauma. And then you ask yourself, what are we doing? What are we doing with the prison system? What's the point? If we're going to only be creating criminals that are worse, And, what if there are other solutions that we're not allowing ourselves to really do the work, deep work of saying, man, maybe there's a police that can be made to have this person. I think the first time I started thinking about stuff like this was an episode on one of these series. I can't remember which series it was, where it was a pedophile who had severed his own penis because he was so annoyed with himself for having these feelings towards children. And it obviously wasn't based on a real story. But I thought about the writer is introducing to us a different way of thinking of it, as an illness perhaps, as an inability. I don't know.
Something we also ask us, especially when it's other kids sexually assaulting other kids. We talk about this a lot with some of my friends, to be like, you also have to ask yourself what happened to these kids.
Yes.
So these men, what also happened to them as well?
Absolutely.
For them to do these things, or maybe we're not justifying anything, but it's just things where.
And this is the truth, Bonga. If you look at the people, if you look at the stats, if you look at the numbers, people do things to people that were done to them. Things are normalized to kids, and then they go on to be adults that do those things.
And I'm just thinking about. I've lost my train of thought. Okay,
sorry,
I got it. I'm just thinking about how sometimes even castration is not the answer. There are some.
Is it not?
There are some people who'll go on to insert objects if they can't insert their penis. They don't have to insert. It's not about the ejaculation.
YouTube is definitely gonna restrict this video.
Yeah.
It's not about that.
It gets to who it gets to, but yes.
You know, it's not about that. It's because taking off someone's penis is not the answer. Because they will find something to harass someone with. You get people who are abused by things like the mop being inserted inside of them, stuff like that. So even that is not the answer, meaning there's something. I don't know if we'll ever find the answers, but yeah.
And I wonder how long society's been grappling, because we're not the first ones to have this conversation.
Absolutely.
How long has society been grappling with this issue?
Yeah.
And trying to figure out.
I do think it's a combination of everything we've spoken about. Because there are cases where you get people who, like crime dockies, who'll tell you that ever since I was a child, I've always been curious what a body looks like inside, right? Like you get people like that, which for as long as I can remember, I've wanted, like cannibalism, I've wanted to taste what a human tastes like. I do think and then there's those who gradually work themselves into that in the sense that maybe they go down the wrong rabbit hole of, watching the wrong adult content, or whatever the case may be. I do think that everything we're discussing, there's an extent to which the avenues are many as to how people end up there. And obviously one of the more common ones is being abused yourself. Those are one of the more common ones. Then there are those ones where you're like
kids that kill animals.
Yes.
Apparently that's a first sign of good.
There's something wrong. Like they literally don't have that thing that makes them feel compassion towards people and animals.
So they start with especially as young kids. You can't take a human and whatever, but you can take an animal and exercise control and do whatever you want to it.
So the spiritual, the practice, the it being done on you, I think it's a combination of everything.
You're right.
There's no blanket theory for everyone. Each person, it's a different story.
Yes.
I hear what you're saying, or a combination of different. Yeah. Bonga, any other comments?
Nope.
I want to address a comment.
Oh.
Where people said, thank you for allowing Bonga to be on camera. Someone said, guys, I don't allow Bonga to be on camera. Bonga chooses when she wants to be on. People are making it seem like you love, the attention and the camera. And it's like, Bonga, today is your chance. You can, I do not do that. Every time I say, Bonga, sit in the chair. Okay. Yeah, so that's it. Closing, parting shots given. Nothing.
I know, I'm good, Shem.
We had some really deep conversations today.
Oh.
They always leave me going to bed feeling so empty and the world is so sad and dark. I hate it. I hope you guys don't feel like that. But really, share your comments with us. Let us know what you guys think it is. Is it a combination? Are you guys weighting more on the spiritual side? Some of you weighing more on the psychiatric side or childhood traumas? Let us know what your thoughts are and what you're thinking. That was today's episode of The Conversation Capital. For now though, goodbye.